So we're going to take questions. If you can make, unfortunately, Dr. Hala had to leave because she is traveling. She had a lot of commitment. So if you have any question, could you please introduce yourself and make your question as precise as possible, and to whom speaker you are addressing the question.
Hi, I'm from East London / Essex. I'm Jamila. Most people know me as Michelle. For this young lady, I'm not sure of your name. Can you say your name?
Farida.
Farida.
Farida, okay.
You do mentoring, but do you do it for anyone? Is it specific for academia and anyone?
Most of the people who contact me are in academia.
Okay.
A lot, I would say mainly, are struggling within the healthcare system with promotion and trying to find a way to navigate a really difficult horizon. Or sometimes it's about making choices and just giving people the ability to talk through what they actually know they want to do. And I think it's really quite important for women to be doing that for other women. I do it for men as well.
Okay.
I have almost as many men that come, but mainly women.
Okay, and where are you based?
I'm based at Queen Mary's.
Okay.
Do you know the London site?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mile End?
Mile End, yes.
No,
Not
I'm
far
not
from
at the
Mile.
Mile End. I'm at the Whitechapel site.
Whitechapel.
You know where the main hospital is?
Yes.
Behind there's a big glass building, which is the research building. That's where I'm based.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
Who is next? Who is okay?
Good morning. Thank you for the lovely speech to both of you. And I'm Salma. I'm a doctor by profession, but I'm like out of my training, doing like a leadership fellowship. I'm working with the General Medical Council at the moment. And I think my question is, I always personalize my questions, which is like a selfish intent, but basically my concern as for women leaders are, how can, from your personal experience, either of you, how did you feel about expressing yourself and throughout? And I think expression is the problem for us as women. So the bit I struggle with is even like within the family, that way it starts, and whether you're empowered to express yourself. And then once you get into like your profession or your university, and then combining who you are really and where you are. So I'm training to be a surgeon at the moment, but I think part of my concerns will be if I have a family, how my team will view that. Like when I turn up late because I have to drop somebody to the nursery, like what should I say? Like how they will take that. And sometimes I feel women in various in various professions, they try and play they try and be somebody else. So they try and be capable and reliable, and they try and work really hard. And like everybody talks about working as 5 times harder than men. Why? I should just be able to express myself as I am and be accepted for what I am. Like I have to say, I did see the difficulty so far, but I think the bit where you have to, I would love to have a family, and that's my intention. So I would like to be able to express my concerns as a woman and as a mum, within my team and within my profession, happily, without having the feeling that I can't express myself. Thank you.
This is to Farida or to
I think either.
both of you? Okay. So do you want to kick off first?
Yeah.
You have your mic, right?
Yeah. Basically, I've heard all of that. I actually been taught all of that whole working 3 times as much. But in real life, I found out that there is a formula to it. There is an incubation period. When I enter into a new job and nobody knows me there, I wait until either my first or second really big achievements and where people know what my skill sets are, what my capabilities are, and then by the way, I want to do it this way. I ask for my rights. It's kind of like, I learned that actually not even from work, but in the US, I found out that if I connected with people before they found out I'm Muslim, things go great. Because it's almost like people put a thing, it just tints everything that you do, right? So if the first thing you found about me was Muslim, everything I do is going to be a problem. Everything's going to be interpreted in that way. So a lot of the times I connect with people, they're my neighbors, we're cool, and then they enter my house and they're like, oh, you're Muslim. So it happens later on, but it doesn't change. They still like us and everything's cool. So at work, it's kind of like a similar thing. It's not how it's supposed to be. It's not ideal, but it's also understandable. Like imagine me, ESRAA, I have all of this skill set. If I entered into a new job situation and first day I'm late to a meeting because of my son, and second day I'm struggling because, my daughter has an ear infection, and it's gonna ruin everything. And I'm gonna sit and fight for it and express. There's no need for headache in life. What I'm gonna do is for the first month or two, I make sure my support system is in amazing line. I might ask my mom to come in, I might ask my aunt to come in, I have like a whole system just for a very known period of time. And during that period of time, I'm on time, I'm sharp, I do my thing. I'm not over-exerting or less, but I'm doing high-quality work consistently. And then there comes a period where they just know you. They know you, they appreciate you, they like you. So now that, hey, Sharif has an ear infection, it doesn't become an issue because they've seen what you produce. So I wouldn't start off with that, but there will come a time when you feel like it's, time for it.
Yes.
You have the mic, right?
Hello, sorry. I understand what you're saying, a woman in medicine. And I have to say, when I was doing my PhD and I unexpectedly became pregnant, I had the most awful time. However, what I now say, and my group, we were the sort of first women 50% at medical school. What I now say, and we didn't, if you look at Jane Verrill, who's been the president, we're all in the same class, we left our children to really quite late. All right. What I would say to you now, don't worry about your career, your family is really important. If your body's telling you you should have children, you have your children. Right. Yeah. The career will always come. You in a very privileged position, you got a fellowship, all right? Very, very few people get that. That's a huge accolade on your behalf. Everyone has a silver Athena swan, and the women's rights are enshrined in that. Go ahead, have your children. I have to echo something you said, is, you don't always show your hand. So nobody knew I was Muslim, all right? Head of school, sitting around the executive table. Suddenly, people said the most appalling thing about Muslim women. Then, for the first time, I said, excuse me. I was another day of invisibility. Excuse me, could I have a word? And then I banged on the table and I said, as the only Muslim woman here, everyone was shocked. The place quietened down and just looked at me in utter amazement. And then I had said, I'm a Muslim woman. I found what you're saying is really despicable. I'd like you to take it back, but it's words have come out of your mouth, right? I don't actually want to hear it ever again. You then have this thing that now I'm a Muslim. And so people start finding things about Muslims that are not good. Because there are things on the internet. A patient even came to me and said, you know what, we get on so well, you've looked after me for years, but can I ask you, about being a Muslim? So I think it's very important, and I think your strategy is one I learned a hard lesson to learn, all right, over years. Is that what you do? But I think where you are now, it's quite easy. Get pregnant, step out. You know, my niece is the same age as you. She's a Crick Fellow doing a PhD. She's had 2 babies. They have to give you the time off. That's enshrined in law now. That doesn't make you a lesser person. That doesn't mean when you come back you're not able to do your job. You know, those days where somebody said, sign this form, all right, you've had a baby, you're going to leave my group. They can't do that anymore. So firstly, you have rights. Secondly, there's a time and you've got a biological clock, so have your baby. And thirdly, also, I always learned that you have some sort of strategy. If that door closes, what other door would you like to be opened, and work towards it. I think that's the most important thing I can say to you. But I know where you are, been there.
Good afternoon. My name is Victoria Inyama. I've just graduated from this university, but before then I am a Nigerian actress, and I try to use my voice. It always gets me into trouble, especially with my government, but I do try. But my biggest problem is, how do I change the mind of a woman to believe in herself and to trust in her, continue to live her children like she was brought up, to be quiet, not just respect authorities and don't challenge if it's wrong, even if it's against you. Just accept for the sake of peace. Carry on. How and they wouldn't even support a typical African woman who is out there making a difference. I get judged, I get bashed, I get all sorts. Because I'm an actress, I'm a prostitute, and because I much. And these are people you're trying to defend. You're trying to them. You have a voice. They just refuse. It's so frustrating. And a lot of them would actually be graduate school. A lot of them are medical doctors. They don't work. They will tell you religion. The Bible says a woman should stay at home. And they're not making it. They are so. The typical Nigerian woman, I don't even know about Africa, but the typical, she is so accepting of anything. She can't even object to. Sadly, I've experienced domestic violence. So I take domestic violence so passionately. I try to talk to them. And they tell me, I stay for the children. I can't fight him. I don't have money. I don't work. I'd rather die. And they do die. And they would never talk. Even in England here, they would not report to the police. They will tell you the police do not protect them, which is true to an extent. We have that, and I take it on a lot of times, but they just wouldn't change. Yep. It's difficult.
Okay, so it's difficult for a man to respond to this question because he cannot possibly understand the nuances of it all. But having worked as the gender equality officer within the UN and having worked very closely with colleagues, can I just say that as much as it's difficult for us to notice it, there is significant change in terms of women's expectations and their responses at this point of time. And you're part of that change. So why do we use human rights? Is because we help women self-organize and understand that they have these rights that on one hand there might be a little bit of pushing back or the restriction that there, but women, I think your real point happens to be, why is it not happening fast enough and why isn't it all happening like it should? That's a matter of putting things back on track and so on. But I'll ask the real speakers who are hands-on.
But I don't think it's only Nigerian women. Yeah. Okay, it's women everywhere, right? Not African, not European, not wherever. It's women, right? However, you will make a change, and you have made a change because your generation and the next generation are listening, are living different lives. Right? Sometimes it's so painful because you feel like you're just hitting your head against a wall. Right? There are some things in your community that you can only change by example. And even when people are protesting very loudly, you planted a seed in there. So don't feel so despondent, because the little seeds grow into big trees. And one day, when you're as old as the people or your generation you're complaining about, you will see that all of the rest have changed. And they have a different expectation now, right? Whatever the parents are thinking, this new generation, the millenniums and everyone else, are different.
If I may also add, it's like a cycle. So I think a lot of the times we combine the whole acceptance with the doing something about it and the speaking up as a package. But I think right now what's happening across the world, because it's a more globalized world and because of the internet and because of the availability of information, there is a lot of information reaching a lot of people, sometimes not the right one, but there will come a point of saturation. So what happens in a community is that you need to saturate it with information, and at some point there happens to be a little bit of a change where people might not accept the thing, but don't feel safe to do something about it. And then comes the phase of they don't accept it, they teach their children not to accept it, but not necessarily that it's safe to answer back to authority out of protecting your child. Don't talk back to the police, don't whatever, but this is not right. And then comes the part where when a whole society of people don't accept something, and overhaul comes. So in every community or in every place, or globally right now with the millennials, there is this saturation because of information. It's the day and age of information. There's lots of information coming of gender-based violence is not okay, this is not okay, this is not okay. There's TEDx talks, everything is accessible. So hopefully over time there happens to be a higher level of saturation and higher level of role models and examples where they come in touch with them via the internet or whatever. Then hopefully it happens gradually, but of course we want it now and we want it right this second. And some of us are blessed, you're blessed to go from here to here, but some people in some societies it's a journey. It's a little bit of a journey.
Okay, I know you all keen because lunch is coming, but I will give last feedback because she's going to give us some reflection from Saudi Arabian perspective. Here you go. Introduce yourself and yes, I think you all start getting hungry now.
I'm Dr. Ilham Mustafa Abu Bakr, psychotherapist, PhD. I don't think I can speak English fluently, so I can speak maybe in Arabic, and ESRAA will translate, or my no problem. So yeah, but long time I didn't talk in English. 30 years I'm talking in Arabic and do my so for Saudi يعني it is 30 year between Saudi community. And I think when I heard this about human rights, for our work, psychological work, when one comes to you, he is really stuck or lost. When one seeks oh sorry طيب لما يجيك الواحد خلاص who will translate for me? You can do it for me. Yeah. لما الواحد يجي العيادة النفسية هو بيكون stuck or lost. المشكلة أنت بتعالج you are going to give treatment. يعني you have to, as she said, يعني you have to في CBT, في cognitive behavioral therapy, في so many things, but the environmental يعني maybe he
You can say one,
طيب
one
طيب
sentence in
أحسن.
Arabic and I translate it right away if you want, and take it slowly.
طيب
Yeah,
ايوه
go away.
لما يجي المريض في العياده النفسيه، والمشكله يعني في السعوديه ناو اكثر المشاكل هي مشاكل الريليشن شيب.
So mostly in Saudi Arabia, most problems at the moment rotate around relationships.
about في العلاقات، وبالفعل في يعني ممكن نقول انه في destructive narcissistic pattern، سواء كان من الزوج او من حتى الاولاد. يعني في مشكلة كبيرة جدا الان في المجتمع السعودي.
Yeah, at the moment she notices that the narcissistic patterns, the narcissistic disorder patterns are very present, whether it's in husbands or in children or in whoever it is in the family, and it's a pattern that's being passed on, I think.
أيوة. وهذه المشكلة حقيقة مسببت لنا يعني مشكلة كبيرة في العيادات النفسية، لأنه جزء منها لو كانوا هم بيعرفوا الهيومن رايتس أو بتدخل في الكرشر بتاعتهم كان ساعدتهم كثير جدا.
Yeah, she said also that if they only knew more about human rights and the knowledge that comes with human rights, it would have helped them very much tackle those issues and evolve in their culture.
أيوة.
Is that so?
أيوة. أيوة. لأنه إحنا في العلاج يعني الخدمة اللي بنقدمها نفسيا هي خدمة بتتكون في إنه كيف تغير الأفكار وكيف تغير المشاعر وكيف تغير اللي هو إيش المشاعر والأفكار والسلوك.
And from a psychological perspective and a point of work, it's how to change your thoughts, how to also be aware and change your emotions, and then how to then change your behavior.
لكن لما تشوف stressors is someone living with you. This is English. It is something psychological. طيب لما تشوف أحد أنت عاوز تعالج أحد وبعدين around him مشكلته إنه أحد معاك طول الوقت stressors وما ممكن أنت يعني تزيح هذا الشخص. Do you think عملية العلاج النفسي كيف تتأثر؟
And then can do all what she can to help this person, but then if this person is in an environment where there are stressors around this person affecting this person are really strong in there, and as a psychotherapist you cannot remove those influences from their environment, then it really challenges your job as a psychotherapist.
طيب المشكلة هنا حقيقة أثرت على نوعية الأمراض النفسية. يعني الآن أنت ممكن تقولي في PTSD وفي complex trauma، ودائما تخلي الأمراض النفسية كرونيك، فسببت مشكلة كبيرة. يعني هذه الظروف اللي أنا قلتها قبل شوي.
Can you say it again؟ بس لأنه ما فهمت عليك شو قصدك.
طيب الوضع الحالي اللي أنا قلته إنه خلت طبيعة الأمراض النفسية المتواجدة في السعودية، لأنه هي دائما فيها تروما باوند وفيها attachment bond و something like that، فبقت من طبيعة الأمراض اللي فيها الكومبلكس تروما والPTSD من كثرة الأحداث اللي بيتعرضوا لها من الدوميستيك فايولانس.
And the nature and what of the culture in Saudi Arabia and the frequent domestic violence incidents, therefore now presents us with lots of PTSD cases, lots of cases that have to do with trauma bond and complex trauma.
Yeah, they are. يعني they were.
Did you want to say something?
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to give a few quick other things. I know we have some.
Okay.
تمام والله well done. تمام.
Thank you very much.
Could I make
Any
one
other
point?
one last?
Just one point.
Yeah.
Could I say psychological narcissistic behavior is increasing in all societies, all right? And it is just as complex in the society here as it is in Saudi. Yeah.
Any brief comments before we go for lunch?
It's just being self-centered, I think, and narcissism is like, you know, the extreme of it. And I think it's among men and women. Does that make sense?
Well, I think it's in everyone,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
And it's becoming, if you look at narcissism as a psychological trait, which is what she's talking about, if you look at the increase in all societies and Western ones, it's exactly the same. Actually.
So we're just being more aware of ourselves, I think. So like more aware of others' behavior rather than accepting it as the norm.
We're not. That's the problem.
Okay, any final comments before we wrap this up?
Can I just request that you share?
Take the mic. Yeah.
Can you share the website again where to download resources?
That's right.
Yes. The website will share it, yes.
My name is Nahid Ahmad, and I'm a law student from University of East London. I belong to East London as well. This is a question actually for all you guys. I appreciate the slides, everything, and effort this university made to create awareness. My question is any, you know, sometimes we got the qualities or we want to portray our eligibilities or anything, but we don't know exactly the platform, like where we can deliver our to make difference in the society or make difference or for the development of women. So I would really like to ask all of you, if any platform we can go if someone have extra time to spend there voluntarily, because I know myself in England, whenever I wanted to be a volunteer, it's always hard. It's not easy if you are like giving your time without like expecting any pay or anything. It's not even easy to get any volunteer work. So if any platform from the University of East London for development of women, for in any prospect in human rights, like I am a law student, I can obviously do something for the people, for the community. So I really exactly don't know where to go to if I have got now, I'm free for my next term. It's been 2 months I'm available. So I don't know really where to go.
So first of all, thank you so much for turning up and also for your commitment. You have various people over here, both inside the university, that's Professor Alam and myself.
Yeah.
We'd be happy to welcome your inputs in ways in which you think is best served, but also as the opportunity comes. But I think this is also both a forum. So on one hand, the work that you do in terms of generating your research, evidence-based thinking, that's important. The second one is mobilization, which is what you're talking about, engaging. Third one, what we are doing today is trying to kind of build that common ground and understanding on how we can move forward in the country.
Yeah, because
so we'll be in touch with you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
It is appreciable, like the slides and everything. But the main thing is, practically, we should do something even for Nigerian women. For my background, I'm Asian women from Pakistan. There's a lot to do practically, and I appreciate if we get a bit chance, if someone can put a little bit effort towards that will be appreciated more than obviously I appreciate everything you putting at the moment.
Hi, my name is Zainab. I am a pediatric nurse at the moment and also doing my master's at UEL for international development and NGO management. This question is really for ESRAA. I just wanted to ask, after being somebody who worked into the admin after finishing their master's, which is sort of almost where I'm at, would you still recommend starting with the admin and finding out like the ins and outs of an organization? Would you still recommend that as like a starting point? That's really my question.
Okay. And I think there is just one last question here. This is the last question, yes, for you.
Hi, my name's Rashida. I'm a graduate from UEL. I came to the last conference where we had Dimitri talk about research findings based on all of the different activities that have been done from since 2009 till present. In one of your slides, Professor Siraj, you mentioned something about capacity and gap
Gap analysis.
Something, I can't remember what it is.
Analysis.
Gap analysis. Okay, so what I'm trying to get at is that there's a lot of analysis, there's a lot of research that has gone into what's happening with women and gender and issues around it. But what is actually going to be implemented, what is actually being implemented? There's all the findings, there's all the analysis, but what's being implemented? And also, you still have to deal with the prejudice from women and the prejudice from men when you rise up and you go to higher levels, whether you have your qualifications, PhD, etc. You still have struggles that women experience when they do get their education. And I've been in dialogue back and forth with someone that's in Saudi Arabia who just said to me that at the end of the day, the scholars have said that women don't need to worry about getting the education because there will always be someone. Women don't need to be worried about becoming nurses and doctors because there will always be someone to do it for them. So there is still that mindset and there is still that issue and that struggle. So even though we have women that are qualifying and that are educated, and that are at their top level of the game, they still experience struggle. So how are you proposing to deal with that, with the SDGs and everything else? You know, what sort of things are you dealing with there in terms of capacity and in terms of gaps? You know, the pay gap, all of that. It's still an issue. It's recognised. It's known. You know, we've been talking about it for so many years. What's being done about it?
So let me start off with that, but I'm sure we'll draw other people in what is going to be our most important but final dialogue. So we are really looking at best practices because there are women on the ground through their leadership that are making significant changes. I mean, so that's one part of it. But you identified, as others have identified, two basic issues. One is how do we change mindsets, and second is how do we move forward. And the link for that happens to be that your question is what is called a so what questions. We carry out these analysis, but it's having that kind of column. So this human rights based approach is being used right across as a sort of a checklist. So do we find out, like, let's assume that our group is going to get together and we find out, you know, the professionals over here, the civil society over there, I mean, there might be financial, human resources. When you identify the gaps in order to lead a campaign or to try to solve a problem, what are those gaps that is there? And then we try to generate through that the capacities and etc. So yes, so please come forward and help us in this. It's a collective endeavor. And I can talk, for example, in terms of Saudi Arabia, where women have actually seized the opportunity. It's not been easy, we know that. But if you see, I mean, going back to Saudi Arabia, I carried out an evaluation of what is called their Future Saudi Cities program. Within a year of going back, I mean, things had transformed itself. So there is change taking place in so many parts of the world. So I think this is a beginning. Let's not overstate what we're doing today. This was a very helpful dialogue, exchange of ideas, but we'll be in touch with you and take that forward. And I look for our leaders among you and our speakers to do the same. Okay, I'm afraid lunch begins.
Would I be able to answer the question?
One question, just a little one.
Okay, there are two quick questions and then we go around
I also
four.
didn't answer the question before the one that was asked.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
Go ahead.
So just to answer your question about that's where you are right now in terms of like admin work and stuff like that. I truly 100% believe that I think like right now in this world there's about like two pathways, all right? One of them is to know everything about a thing, right? You know everything about this electron, everything, you write 35 papers about it, you know all of this, you will actually go up that ranks very quickly, you would present about it, you will be known for being an expert in that field. This is a great, very focused field, it works with some people. There is another pathway which is having lots of cards. If you're a type of person that you just don't know where you're going to be tomorrow and stuff like that, you need lots of cards to play with. So over time, like you just need to be conscious about why are you doing what you're doing right now. And it's not like I just landed here and I'm unhappy here and you're focused on that. If you know that you're in there to gain certain skill sets, then you will be in there to gain those skill sets and you will leave when you gain those skill sets to add it to your collage of skill sets that you have. Like When I was at PAI, I learned about policy. I learned about advocacy when I went to APA. And I learned about also like fundraising in nonprofits, Bill and Melinda Gates, HP, Hewlett Packard, all of these. When I went into APA, I learned about the NIH system, about the US government granting systems. I learned about mentorships, mentoring. And each place, like right now in the job that I'm in, I'm all about data and analytics, data science. I'm learning R, I'm learning Python, I'm learning Panda. I'm learning all of these different things. My background is in public health. When I was in public health, I learned SPSS. It's probably outdated right now. Like, nobody uses it now, right? People are using Tableau and lots of different things. In order for me to become always, as they say in Arabic, muwakib, you have to continue to be competitive enough and have that in addition to your knowledge. And also, admin skills and interpersonal skills in addition to knowledge makes you a very powerful candidate. Like if you're someone who has lots of knowledge, but you can't present and you can't really write a report that's proper, you're less competitive than someone who has the knowledge, is relatable, is accessible, and can actually write reports and spit out data and can do all of these other admin stuff. So just there is value, there's lots of value in having all of these admin skill sets. Just be conscious of what it is and, add from there. Do you have any?
And I think basically there is learning in everything that you do, right? And sometimes you're doing things and you don't want to be there, but actually do the best you can. So whenever you're doing something, be the best you can in whatever. And you will use that for something else. Never feel sorry for yourself. When you're down, say, what is the learning in here for me, and can I make the best of it? Yeah.
And sometimes that means that you have to work twice as harder than others because you're a woman of particular ethnicity and other things. But if you just recognize that the obstacles out there and that you can overcome and you will overcome, that gives you a further, because you have something that nobody else has. And that is the will not only to succeed, but to have a meaningful, progress forward.
Yeah. So I never ever got a job, right? Except I was offered a job because I had skills that other people didn't have. So people would identify that I had something that they needed and offer me a job. And I think when you are a disadvantaged group of people, especially in this country, what you want to do is to do the best you can, whatever you're doing, and add on to it. So when she was doing the admin job, she was learning all sorts of things. And whatever you do, you're learning communication skills, you're learning a huge amount of things about people, the psychology of how people interact, work, whatever. The next job you do. And it's valuable, all right? Don't denigrate any job that you do. I was saying, because I wanted to do medicine, I was sitting in the lavatory and doing my work in the evening because that was the warmest place because I didn't have money to heat my room. But it didn't matter because I knew I was gaining valuable information and skills which I could use. So it doesn't matter what you do, you learn a lot.
And you said you have a quick one, right?
Yeah, my question is, because when I look at the slides and everything, it's always talking about empowering the Muslim women. Is this program all about Muslim women? What about those that are not Muslims?
So could I just respond to that? So I don't think I used the word Muslim today. But whenever we look at women's empowerment, we need to recognize that sometimes religion plays a very important role. And I think you mentioned that also. So you have faith-based approaches in various countries, various contexts, that both look at faith as a positive force, which women themselves choose to have. And sometimes interpretations by mostly men, which tend to keep women down, so they're injurious practices. So yes, culture and faith is an additional dimension, but I think a point that has been made right across is the challenges that women face in terms of reaching their potential, in terms of getting collective development, are sort of in some ways quite generic. How in a particular country or how in a particular community group you engage with it could differ. So the answer to your question is, in our center, we have worked a lot with Muslim women, but on the other hand, equally women of all dimensions as well as identities.
Yeah. I went to Church of England school, amazing. I have family of every single religion you can think of, and everyone has a value, and all streams flow into the same river. What I would say to you, and African men would hate this, doesn't matter if you're white, green, blue, black or orange, or if you're Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Zoroastrian, born again, right? They all think the same. And so all these issues that are being discussed here today are generic. It's got nothing to do with any religion. It's got to do this hugely inbuilt power relationship. So as amazing as my father was, I had this conversation with him. He died when he was 95. 92, Daddy, you had all these girls and we've all done all these things. And it says that, when you die, you're not male or female. So doesn't that mean we're equal? What do you think? So with all these women in your family, what do you think about male or females? He goes, yeah, Farida, after a long think, I think you're right. But men are just as better than women. They cannot get their minds. And I think it will take more than one generation for men in Africa, who I know better than men anywhere, to have that change of view of women. So what we're talking about, it's got nothing to do with religion.
I know we're running out of time, but I might just respond to that. So sometimes in some communities, they believe that man has a daraja, a degree, which is higher than a woman. Now, some of the work that various women are doing across the world is to say that that was contingent upon the male being, let's say, the breadwinner or having more access and responsibility. That has changed right now. So like gender itself is socially constructed, even the understanding of religion moves all the time. So that's why we say muamalat rather than a question. This is not a matter of religion, this is a matter of society moving on, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.